12th, 2023 meeting of Jefferson City Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Dale Vaughn. I'm the chair of the commission. I would like to remind the commission members to turn on their microphones when speaking and ask everyone present to please silence their phones and other electronics during the meeting. We will go ahead and have members introduce themselves, starting with the council liaison.
Mike Lester, City Council Liaison, Ward 2.
Trika Young.
Jacob Robinette.
Emily Fretwell.
Penny Quigg.
Greg Butler.
Hank Vogt.
Courtney Bliss, City Planner.
Shane Wade, Engineering Division.
Eric Barron, Planning Manager.
Sonny Sanders, Director of Planning Protective Services.
Jason Turner, Division Chief, Fire Department.
Dustin Birch, Associate City Attorney.
Sarah Michael.
And so Sarah is our new member. And so later on in the agenda, we'll have a chance to maybe introduce her more.
Lisa Dittmer.
The city code authorizes 9 regular members and 3 alternates. Alternates are designated to vote upon the absence or disqualification of regular members. A quorum of 5 members or alternates is necessary to conduct business. I declare a quorum is present. The following regular members are absent this evening: Bunny Tricky Cotton and Shannon Hawk. Are there any members who are disqualified from voting on any agenda item? Seeing none. The voting members, everyone present is eligible to vote tonight. Is someone in attendance to present the Cedar City Drive case? Okay. Is someone in attendance to present the St. Mary's Boulevard case? Bolivar Street case? Okay, got it. And then also the block of Marshall Street. Busy night. Are there any requests for continuance? No.
No.
We do have a request to reorder the agenda. So we move the case around. Cedar City Drive will go first on the agenda.
Yeah, so that's
Chairman, I have a question about the agenda. The case number P23003, that's exactly the case that's come before us and gone to the city council, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so the request to reorder the agenda is to move case number 23004, 1000 block of Marshall Street. It's a final subdivision plat we thought the item number 2 on the agenda would be appropriate. It's final subdivision plat and not a public notice item. That's why it appears last on the agenda, but it should be a fairly short one.
Okay. Okay, Courtney, will you please read the format of the hearing and order of testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to briefly describe the procedures of the commission. The proceedings of the meeting are being recorded, so please step to the microphone when you speak and give your name and address for the record. The standard order of each case is as follows. After introduction of the request by city staff, the applicant or their consultants will provide information on the request. The only presentation by the applicant shall be limited to 10 minutes each unless additional time is granted by the commission. The applicant shall have an additional 3 minutes for closing testimony if requested. We will then ask to hear from supporters of the request. We will then ask to hear from opponents of the request. We will then ask to hear from anyone else who wishes to speak on the request. Testimony shall be limited to 3 minutes each unless additional time is granted by the commission. City staff will then make the recommendations on the request. In order to reduce the time necessary to hear an application, references to printed materials, including staff reports and applicable findings, shall not be read into the record unless directed by the commission. The commission will close testimony from the floor. The commission will then discuss the proposal, then make a determination with reasons. The form motion shall be positive, that is, the motion shall be made to accept the request as presented or with modifications, stipulations, or conditions. A final vote will be taken with ayes in favor, nays opposed. The chair shall announce the results of the vote, specifying the number of votes cast in favor and the number of votes cast against. The following documents are entered as exhibits for all items under consideration at this meeting: the City Code of City of Jefferson as amended, the Comprehensive Plan and Land Use Map, copies of applications under consideration, a list of property owners to whom notices were sent, the affidavit of publication of the public notice to the newspaper, Copies of drawings, plans, and/or renderings under consideration. Lenders or memoranda from staff, staff reports, minutes of proceedings, correspondence, or other materials submitted by the public or the applicant. Rules of procedure for the Jefferson City Planning and Zoning Commission. These items are public record and available for inspection through the Department of Planning and Protective Services or through the Office of the City Clerk. Please be advised that any items that are presented, distributed, or otherwise received pertaining to the cases under consideration become the property of the Commission. This includes any photographs, drawings, petitions, and letters. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as reordered?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Can I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of December 8th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have received an email communication from Josh Cordy, and I think that was the only one, correct?
Yeah, it's in respect to the first case on the agenda, the Cedar City Drive case.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 1110 Cedar Drive rezoning. Courtney, could you please present the case?
So this property is located at it is located at 1110 Cedar City Drive. It is near the intersection of Oil Well Road, which runs there on the eastern side of those two parcels. There is two parcels as part of this request. And then there's Cedar City Drive, which is adjacent to the southern parcel to the south. And then Highway 63 is above to the north. The zoning is M1 light industrial. The surrounding zoning is also M1 light industrial to the north, and then to the south is M1 light industrial, RS4 single family medium density residential, and then C2 general commercial. To the east is M1 light industrial. To the west is also M1 light industrial. This is a closer-up image of the site outlined in blue. And this property hasn't been involved in a few other rezoning cases. In 1988, it was a part of the northern parcel was rezoned from RU to M1 light industrial. And then in 1989, the southern parcel was rezoned, or was a part of a zoning plan, which was a part of whenever Cedar City was annexed in. It was a part of a zoning plan, and that parcel became zoned M1 light industrial. The proposal includes two parts. One is a rezoning from M1 light industrial to PUD, and the other part is a PUD site plan, a preliminary PUD. And a part of this process is the commission will review both the rezoning and the PUD plan, and then so I'm going to go next to the PUD plan. What they want to do as a part of this proposal is a retail farm to market store. And there has been an updated visual, but I'll let the applicant and their consultant describe that. But the basis is around this retail farm to market store. And those are the two components. So the rezoning and the PUD plan are the main components of this plan. And also additionally, so in the application there were review criteria for the rezoning, which is in the applicant has provided responses to in their application, which should be in the case packet. And then also staff has provided responses, brief responses to those same criteria, also located in the case packet as well within the staff report. And I'll briefly touch on those later, but I'll pass it back over to you, Mr. Chair, and I'll let the applicant describe the rest of their request. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Do any commissioners have any questions for Courtney? Okay. Do any commissioners have questions for staff? We will now hear from persons who would like to present this case. Please come forward to the microphone and give your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Paul Sampson with Central Missouri Professional Services, 2500 East McCarty Street. And I'm here tonight to represent Jay and Kim Fisher, who are the owners of the subject property. As Courtney explained, the request is to rezone a portion of their property located at the corner of Oil Well Road and Cedar City Drive from M1 to PUD. The M1 existing zoning, because of the floodplain issues across the river, is really not very suitable for industrial type development. It's been rezoned like that for quite some time, and basically still remains a farm field. So we're requesting the PUD zoning to accommodate a seasonal farmers market type facility. The PUD zoning has been requested in order to allow a little bit more flexibility in the design elements, because it is a little bit of being a seasonal type building. It's a little bit of a more unique type situation, so that's why we've asked for the PUD zoning. I handed out before the meeting a 11 by 17 drawing of a little bit more detailed site plan than what was originally in the packet. So basically the site plan consists of about a 2,900 square foot building. There'd be some freezer space inside, basically a retail floor and some restrooms. With the size of the building, 14 parking spaces would normally be required. The lot that we propose will have about 18 spaces on it. There will be a concrete driveway off of both Oil Well Road and off of Cedar City Drive to provide circulation through the site. And as Courtney explained, we'll have some trees around the perimeter of the property using fruit trees rather than the typical shade trees that would normally be required. Again, because of the seasonal nature of the facility, we're asking for a variance to normal procedures to allow a gravel parking lot. But again, the driveways to both streets will be paved in order to keep any rock from washing onto the road or anything like that. Water and electric utilities are available, existing on the property. The sanitary sewer is located on the south side of Cedar City Road. So we'll have to do a road bore and utility crossing there, but it's in the vicinity, and we'll have to extend that to get the sanitary sewer service to the building. I've mentioned the floodplain. So there is a 100-year floodplain elevation, and some of the grading's already been done, but basically the footprint of the building would be a minimum of 1 foot above that 100-year floodplain elevation, which meets all the floodplain development and FEMA regulations. Anybody have any questions?
Just from my own personal knowledge. So it's gravel parking lot, and then you have parking spaces. How do you do that normally on a gravel parking lot? Just the bumpers?
Well, yeah, most likely. We really haven't talked about that detail yet, but generally speaking, we've kind of got them laid out there for how many cars you could fit in there.
So there really won't be, other than maybe the handicap, probably would be just.
The handicap space will be paved. The handicap space
okay.
and the loading space
Probably has to be
adjacent to it will be concrete. Everything else will be aggregate, and we may put some parking blocks in there just to kind of define those parking spaces.
As far as the floodplain goes, is there rules on how far you can build that out of floodplain? Because I know that they don't want to displace it in other places.
So this is floodplain, not floodway.
Yeah.
So floodplain regulations, you can pretty well do whatever you want to. The floor of your building has to be a minimum of 1 foot above the 100-year flood elevation, and we're actually proposing being 1.5 feet just to make sure we're covered.
And then the last question is, do they have any plans for like the structure itself to like try to keep it from, because it's bound to flood. Do they have are they going to build it in a way where water will
Well, again,
not
because
damage a bunch of?
since we're building it 1 foot minimum above the
so
100-year
hopefully it
flood
won't flood.
elevation,
Okay.
there's no requirement to do anything.
Got it.
I'm suspecting that it would be a concrete slab building, kind of I don't know if it's basically kind of like a pole barn And I'm not sure if it's metal siding or wood siding, but, those details haven't been worked out exactly. But it'll be something that wouldn't be too hard to clean up
Yeah,
should the flood come in.
right. Somebody else have any questions for Paul? No? Okay.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request? See none. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Is there anyone else who would like to just speak on this request? Seeing none. We will now close testimony. Courtney, staff report, please.
So again, there were the rezoning criteria that were looked into, and some of those included was the existing zoning an error when it was done, and it is found that no, it's just that the character and the events that happened throughout the past around 30 years have kind of altered the direction of development in that area. And then the use it is compatible with the area. Staff looked into things such as stormwater, are there utilities to serve the area? Are there public facilities to serve this use? Found to be so. And then does it keep in line with the spirit and intent of the zoning code? Is found to be so. And what kind of would there be benefits to the community with this use? This is a rather unique business that would be going in that area, and so it seems as though it would have the potential to be would be beneficial economically in providing both services to the community and then also the surrounding communities, and have a sort of a potential for tourist attraction. And then as far as there was an analysis of the PUD plan itself, so that was the rezoning component. There were also components looked into as far as the PUD plan itself goes. One notable thing is, so they are proposing a farm to market retail store, but they have also identified that they would like to have a C1 neighborhood commercial zoning designation as the underlying zoning designation for purposes of going or determination of permitted uses in the future, as well as other factors such as signage and lighting as it would pertain to future discussion and development. And so there are also components such as signage. They have proposed building mounting signage, lighting would be building mounted as well. And there's landscaping proposed, parking lot, gravel. The driveway would have to conform to city standards. There is no traffic because it does not meet that 100 peak hour trip number. It doesn't require it does not trigger that traffic analysis study. Staff does recommend approval of this request, and the form motion is broke up into two parts. One for the rezoning, to recommend approval of that rezoning, and then a second one to recommend approval of that preliminary PUD plan with the condition, the following condition, that it would establish that C1 neighborhood commercial zoning designation as the underlying zoning designation for purposes of determination of future uses, future permitted uses, and requirements as far as signage and lighting and other factors such as those go. Do you have anything? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Is signage and lighting the same same rules, regulations as in Jeff City, or is it different out north of the river? I don't know if that makes sense or not.
It's the same.
Same.
It's, part of Jeff City.
Well,
so.
I know, but I'm just
It is
what
Jeff
I'm saying is I always feel like
we
it,
still
because
refer
it's
to
north,
it as Cedar City.
because
but
it's
yeah.
in a flood area. I always feel like it's a little bit different, more of an industrial area. I didn't know if the signage would be any different out there or not, but apparently
No.
not. Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Nope. Seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the City Council, the request to rezone the property from M1 to PUD.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I'll make another motion to recommend approval to the city council of the requested preliminary PUD plan for a retail farm-to-market store with the following condition: the establishment of the C1 neighborhood commercial underlying zoning designation for purposes of determining future permitted uses and requirements for signage, lighting, and other applicable site features.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. And then Courtney, this will go on to the city council.
For introduction on February 6th and then for this, public hearing and vote on the 20th of February. And it'll be held here in the council chambers at 6 p.m.
Okay, moving on to the next case, the 1000 block of Marshall Street. Courtney, could you please present the case?
So again, this is located at the 1000th block of Marshall Street. They're proposing a final plat consisting of total, in all, there are 6 existing lots, but they break those into 10, and it would comprise of about 1.88 acres. It is zoned RS4, and these, let's see, that is a closer-up image of the site. See, essentially the main gist of the plan or the proposal is that final plat. There are some details up there as far as the site goes, as far as contours, sanitary sewer, things of those sort for reference, but I'll let the applicant describe. Well, actually, the development that they plan on doing is single-family housing. That's what they plan to put on those lots. And I'll let the applicant go over more of in-depth on that final plat, and then I'll circle back around with the staff report. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, yeah, so, yeah, sorry, that is the final plat, detailing how they would break up those 6 existing lots into those proposed 10.
Thank you, Courtney. Do any commissioners have any questions for Courtney? We will now hear from persons who would like to present this case. Please come forward to the microphone. You know the routine.
Thank you again. Paul Sampson, CMPS 2500 East McCarty Street. The property owner in this case is Zeal Enterprises, LLC. Tim Joseph, who is in attendance, is the managing member of that LLC. The proposal we've got on this tonight is a subdivision that was, I think the original subdivision may go back to the 60s sometimes. It was replatted at some point. So there are 6 existing lots in this proposal. There's 2 lots on Roland Street. And I did hand out a aerial ahead of time. The color aerial on the front shows the existing 6 lots that are in this proposal, and then the second sheet is a larger copy of the proposed final subdivision plat. Again, this property is located on the corner of Lafayette and Franklin and Roland Streets, just on the north side of Jeff City High School. There's 2 lots that are on face Roland Street, and there are 4 lots that are around the cul-de-sac on Marshall Street. The property owner also has Lot H, which fronts Franklin Street, but that's not part of the proposal tonight. The purpose of the replat of the subdivision is to create a total of 10 single-family residential lots out of the existing 4 lots. The property is zoned RS4, which has a minimum lot frontage of 60 feet. Most of the existing lots are well in excess of that. So we propose to take the 2 lots on Roland Street and divide that into 3 lots. And then the 4 lots at the end of Marshall Street, we'll divide that up and turn that into 7 lots. The intent is to build a little bit smaller homes, single-car garages, just a little bit probably similar in character to what's there, but smaller than what was anticipated when the last replat was done. All the existing infrastructure's in place. All the streets are already there, so there's no new streets to be proposed, and all the utilities are on the site, including stormwater, sanitary sewer, water, and electric is all existing along Marshall Street. So it's like I said, simply creating 4 additional lots. Any questions?
Thank you, Paul. Do any commissioners have any questions for Paul?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Seeing none. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Seeing none. Is there anyone who would like to just speak on this request? Seeing none. We will now close testimony. Courtney, staff report, please.
So just briefly going over the staff analysis of the subdivision plat. Its name was looked up to see if it did not duplicate any of the names out there, and it did not, and its official name is TC3C subdivision as the applicant has submitted. Again, it consists of the 1.88 acres, proposed 10 lots. The lot sizes the dimensions were looked at in respect to the zoning code. And in the RS4 district, the minimum lot size acreage is 6,000, and then the lot width has to be a minimum of 50 feet. That was looked into, and that seems it is in compliance with those requirements. There's existing sidewalk along Rollins Street. There are no new streets proposed. Utilities seem to be in order. As far as fire hydrants go, there is one along Rollins Street, but there does not appear to be one along Marshall Street. The applicant would need to comply with the requirements of the fire code in respect to fire hydrant placement. And staff does recommend approval of the final plat. And there are, with the conditions that they would need to address any technical comments from staff, and then also have a finalized plat submitted prior to City Council. And again, that would be introduced on February 6th, and then would go for a public hearing and vote on the 20th of February here in the council chambers at 6 p.m. Oh, sorry. No public hearing, sorry. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
As far as the engineering review, I think Paul and Courtney both covered most everything. The infrastructure does exist in the vicinity. Utilities appear to be in order other than the fire hydrant on Marshall Street. And we have transmitted minor comments back to the consultant for the final resubmittal. The plat is, as presented, is in good order, and we would recommend approval from the engineering division as well.
Thank you very much. Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Seeing none, we're going to do this in 2 motions. Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, it's actually one motion with 2 conditions.
Oh, and I just read that too. Excuse me, one motion.
I'll save you, Paul, or Dale.
Thank you.
I move to recommend approval to the City Council of the requested final subdivision plat of the TC3C subdivision with the following conditions. A, address technical comments from the city staff. B, submittal of finalized and signed plat prior to introduction to the City Council.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. Moving on to the next case. Okay, moving on to the 2200 block of St. Mary's Boulevard. Courtney, could you please present the case?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This case involves both a rezoning and a a preliminary subdivision plat. It is zoned currently C2 General Commercial, and they are proposing to rezone it to RA2, high density, often referred to as multifamily residential. To the north, there's M2 heavy industrial, and then to the south is C2 General Commercial. To the west is also C2 General Commercial, and then to the east is RA2, that high density residential zoning. Here's a close-up aerial visual of that site outlined in blue. And then here's another site image which contains contours, sanitary sewer lines, water lines, things of that sort. First, the rezoning. What they are proposing is to rezone that portion of property from C2 General Commercial to RA2 High Density Residential. And as a part of that, they are proposing a preliminary subdivision plat, which would encompass 25 lots that would contain duplexes on them. They're also proposing a new street. There are multiple details on there as far as sidewalk goes, the dimensions of those lots, dimension of the roadway, utilities, the additional lot for, the stormwater basin, thank you, and those various components. And with that, I'll leave the applicant to go further into that proposal, those two proposals. Also, additionally, this also does contain those review criteria for the rezoning. Both the applicant has put responses in, and then city staff also have those review criteria responses in the staff report. Also, all of it contained in the case packet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Do any commissioners have any questions for Courtney? Do any commissioners have any questions for staff? We will now hear from persons who would like to present the case. Mr. Paul.
Hello again, Paul Sampson, CMPS, 2500 East McCarty Street. This project is a proposal by Matty Joe LLC, which is the Shepherd's family, Joe Shepherd's and his sisters. So this is located directly east of the NH Shepherd's distribution facility. The first part of the proposal is rezoning from C2 to RA2. The property currently has a parking lot on it, which was used for parking for office buildings that were located on the south side of St. Mary's Boulevard. Those two office buildings have been vacant for quite some time, and the parking on this side of St. Mary's Boulevard hasn't been used for quite a while. So the proposal is to rezone this to RA2 to accommodate a duplex subdivision. So the proposed street would be called St. Mary's Circle, and the subdivision would be called St. Mary's Circle Subdivision. There would be 25 lots within the subdivision. Each lot would contain a single duplex. The intent is that these would be rental type units. Let's see. St. Mary's Circle would be 28 feet wide, sidewalk on one side, parking on one side, and then everything would loop back around and tie in with St. Mary's Boulevard. There will be a stormwater detention basin located in the northeast corner of the property. In that, directly north of that is Highway 50, so there's a culvert that runs underneath the highway that this would practically tie right into. The sanitary sewer is also located in that northeast corner, so all the utilities would be extended throughout the subdivision. The proposal, at least right now, we're intending that when this happens, that the east side of the subdivision would maybe be done in phases. East half likely done first, followed by the west half as things start to get built out. We would also be building sidewalks along St. Mary's Boulevard to meet current code. As far as other utilities go, water, electric, telephone is all located on St. Mary's Boulevard, so it'll be brought into the subdivision to serve those units. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Paul? Getting off pretty easy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Yeah. If you would give us your name and address.
Lois Hogan, and I live at 2120 St. Mary's Boulevard, B3. I live in the building that this would back up to. I guess my concern is just the increase in the traffic on that street. If there's been any traffic study done or any consideration about that, you're talking 50 new households in a very tight area. There's already, on St. Mary's Boulevard, in the area we live, there's people parking on the street on both sides of the street. It's really congested.
Okay. Is that mainly your own question? Because what we'll do is we'll have Paul, I guess, come back up and answer that.
That's my main one. I mean, obviously, it's going to really change our quiet enjoyment of the property because it's wooded, but I understand the property owner has a right to do that, but it's going to.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Lois? No? Okay, thank you. We have Paul come back. Oh, okay. Are there any other comments as far as that goes? No.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, if there's anyone else who wants to speak, it might be appropriate to make sure we go through that, and then if you'd like, you could request the consultant come up and respond to any questions, or staff can.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of the request? Or opposition, excuse me. Seeing none. I guess my question would be for staff, has there been a traffic study done as far as that goes?
And so the response there, I think it is included in the staff report, that the trigger within the zoning code for a traffic impact analysis is either, I think it's 75 single-family units or 50 duplexes being constructed. And so as this is a 25 duplex development, it does not trigger the requirement for a traffic impact analysis. Also, on the commercial side, it's 100 peak hour vehicle trips. And so to give you an idea of, those are roughly equal in terms of peak hour generation. That's usually what's looked at for a traffic impact analysis. A typical fast food restaurant will generate about 100 peak hour vehicle trips. But the response there is that it does not trigger the zoning code requirement for a traffic impact analysis. Obviously, the Public Works Department engineering review look at things such as traffic circulation to make sure that it's meeting standards and such, and can lean on Paul or Shane to answer any questions on that.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else who's present who would like to just speak on this request? Seeing none, we will close testimony. Courtney, the staff report, please.
First, looking at the rezoning, the use is compatible with what would be located on the eastern side of the property, that high density residential uses. It is also in alignment with the comprehensive plan. The utilities in the area, there are utilities in the vicinity, and all of their respective utilities would have to conform to city code requirements. Let's see, there are, okay, so the potential rezoning would increase the amount of availability of multifamily residential homes in the area. And moving into the plat itself, the name was checked again, verified to make sure that it was not a duplicate. It appears that St. Mary's, without the apostrophes, Circle subdivision is not a duplicate. Also check the name of the street, that is not a duplicate. Check the lot sizes, the dimensions, and for the RA2 zoning district, there is a requirement of an acreage minimum of 5,000 and a lot minimum of 60 feet. Those were checked and verified to make sure that those were in conformance with the city code. The mail service, there is noted on there, on the revised plat that was sent in and put up there, that it's up there in the center of the new roadway. And then there's proposed sidewalk along the interior that would have to conform to city standards. Parking, streets, traffic would all have to conform to city standards as well. In addition, utilities likewise. Staff does recommend approval of both the rezoning and the subdivision plat, as it is a use which is compatible with the area, particularly those uses to the east. It is alignment with, again, this comprehensive plan. The rezoning and the subdivision plat, again, would have to address technical comments from staff. Here's the form motion broken up into two parts, one for the rezoning itself, and the other for a rezoning from C2 general commercial to RA2 high density residential, and then a second motion to recommend approval of that preliminary subdivision plat with the following condition, that they would have to address technical comments from staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Courtney. Do any commissioners have any questions for, do you have any questions of the staff? Oh, I'm sorry. Shane, go ahead.
I'll try not to repeat some of the other items that have been covered in the staff report, but as far as the engineering staff comments go, public infrastructure is existing in the vicinity. The proposed street will serve the 25 proposed 2-unit lots. Stormwater, as Paul had indicated, is to be collected at the northeast portion of the subdivision, and we'll be collecting drainage both from the subdivision and from some inlets just to the east from St. Mary's Boulevard. The sewer will be extended to serve all the lots within the subdivision from that northeast corner as well. Sidewalk is proposed both along one side of the road and also the new road, St. Mary's Circle, and then also along St. Mary's Boulevard. We would request that the portion that's shown along St. Mary's Boulevard be proposed as 5 feet wide instead of the 4 feet as the local roadway, which would be the new one on St. Mary's Circle. Utilities have been proposed in accordance with subdivision standards, including streetlights and fire hydrants. As far as the traffic impact, as Eric had indicated, that is not a requirement due to the zoning code, but however, the consultant has done a couple of other things to look at those kind of items. He's identified the site distance from both intersections of the new roadway onto St. Mary's Boulevard, and those distances seem to be adequate for our standard design criteria. Also, the 4 specific lots that are on the frontage of St. Mary's Boulevard are to be restricted in regard to driveway access to just the new proposed road and not to the St. Mary's Boulevard. That would be lots 1, 15, 16, and 25, and those are all up at the upper portion of the subdivision. St. Mary's Boulevard is a connecting road from Missouri Boulevard all the way over to Dix Road, serving primarily residential type development to the east. There is some commercial to the west of this, but we have no reason to feel like that there's any, I'd say, it's designed should be designed to handle this additional amount of traffic from the character of the roadway as it is today. So we would recommend approval of the proposal, subject to having our technical corrections being addressed on the final version of the preliminary plat. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
The only question I have is the ordering of the lot numbers. Why is that? Because 18's right in the middle of 30.
Yeah,
You
so that's
said-
one of
you
our
said
technical.
lot 16, but I can't even find
Yeah,
lot 16 on there.
That's one of our technical comments.
Oh.
That should be 16 and 17. So,
Okay.
Yep.
I was like, okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Now, do any commissioners have any questions for staff? Seeing none. Seeing none, would someone like to make the first motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to City Council of the proposed rezoning from C2 General Commercial to RA2 High Density Residential.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Would someone like to make the second motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plat of St. Mary's Circle subdivision with the following conditions. Address technical comments of city staff.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just to point out, make sure it's understood, preliminary subdivision plats are approved at the Planning and Zoning Commission level. A future final plat would still have to be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It could be presented in multiple sections, multiple phases, and those plats, the final plats, go on to the City Council for final approval, but the preliminary plat is an approval item by this body.
Okay, thank you. We got a second, didn't we? Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. Okay, moving on to 309.
But if we could just announce,
Oh.
this will, the rezoning will proceed to the City Council for introduction on February 6th, and public hearing and vote scheduled for February 20th. So there's a public hearing on the rezoning item associated with this request at the City Council on February 20th, which will take place at 6 p.m. in this chamber.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 309 and 311 Bolivar Street. Courtney, could you please present the case?
And Mr. Chair, I was going to take this one. And so this is a request for an amendment to a PUD plan. The property is highlighted up there on the screen, 309, 311 Bolivar Street. The aerial photo that's shown on there is an old air photo. It shows it pre-development. There has been a building built on the property known as 3-Story Coffee. This is site aerial. Note that fire station number 1 is located just to the north of this property, across the alley. This is a final PUD plan that was approved administratively after the preliminary PUD plan had been approved through the Planning and Zoning City Council hearing process. And so this final PUD plan shows the development plan for the property. The proposed amendment for this plan deals with the portion of the parking lot located adjacent to the alley. And so this is the proposed amendment. And shows a series of parking spots head in off of the alley. So there's a lot of information contained within the packet. There's we've tried to lay this out as far as the staff report goes. This item was presented and went through this body just a couple months, about 6 months ago. Proceeded on to the City Council, so some of that is referenced within the staff materials as well. And so the basis of the staff recommendation on this is fire department concerns about impact on emergency services. And so you can read that staff recommendation within the packet. And so the fire department is best able to represent what those concerns are. And so I have a representative from the fire department to go into that in more detail. There's an extensive correspondence and timeline packet that's included in your materials. And so you can go through and read the correspondence and timeline associated with this case and the discussions, the various meetings that have taken place between the developer and the fire department and discussion around this topic. And again, I'll reiterate that the basis of the staff recommendation on this is the fire department concerns about impact on emergency services. And Jason, would you like to take it from there?
Mr. Chairman, Commission, thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. On behalf of the fire department, we take all the site plans that we get, it's very serious to review. Much like the other three that you just seen earlier before this presentation, the fire department had reviewed those and given our opinion, much with the community development and what would require the protection and safety and the risk analysis for our citizens here in Jefferson City. More specifically, whenever something like this impacts the fire stations, we take it very serious to make sure that it doesn't affect the response and the effect of what it would do to the fire station in the event that we had delays. Now, in this particular station, Station 1, the busiest station in the city, 2,000 calls a year out of the 6,000 that we respond to, it is the busiest station we have. And when we decided to discuss this, not when we decided, when we were asked to discuss this, Chief Schofield asked me to spear this, and me and the owner, or developer, we sat down and we discussed this. And initially, we were in favor of no parking, merely because we have assets and resources that are at that station that we have to rely on to get to quickly. It's very simple. Time is an essence when it comes to saving lives. Specifically, yes, our watercraft are stationed there and positioned there, though it's not a concern right now because the Missouri River is only at 2 feet deep. The risk is still there because we had potentially ice, coming down the river last week. So those are risks that we take, and those are things we have to be prepared for. But during this time, we have worked with them, and at some point, we agreed. I don't have the date in front of me, but we said, okay, 2 parking spots, yes, we can live with that. We think that's probably something that we can manage and we can work with. I'll bring to your attention an email on September 11th, 2020, third paragraph, third line. The statement from the owner states that we will make every reasonable effort to reduce the risk and the impact on the fire department's operational equipment. That's an email from Mr. Shaper-Cutter sent to 7 of us, more specifically Shane Wade, on September 11th at 9:49 a.m. I'll bring to your attention another email. It's dated October 16th, 2020 at 4:01 p.m. The second paragraph. This issue, though, was the subject of the meeting I had with Chief Turner prior to the P&Z meeting. I assured Chief Turner that we would take all possible steps to ensure the accessibility of the alleyway. We reduced the size of the back parking lot area specifically because we thought Chief Turner's expressed concerns were appropriate enough for the from the fire department's perspective. 853 days later, our opinion is still the same. We want to reduce the risk of what it's going to do to the fire station to get our resources in and out of the facility. 853 days ago, we discussed this and we came to an agreement. There was never any discussion from the prior PUD with 2 parking spots going to 8 today. It was never mentioned to us, though that's what was said at the last P&Z meeting was, excuse me, I don't remember word for word, it was always our intent to expand parking back there. That was never discussed with it. It's never in none of these emails that we have, and I scoured your emails today to look for that and never seen that. I'm not going to take all night for you. I just want you to understand that if this were Fire Station 2, 3, 4, 5, any of our future fire station sites, we would take this very serious about how it would impact the risk for us to be able to get out, respond to situations, or return to the station to get resources that we have to go to. I'll entertain any questions that you might have. I'll be glad to. And again, I apologize. I got limited resources here on your other packet, so thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Okay, sure, go ahead.
You had mentioned 2 parking spots, correct?
That was the initial agreement.
Okay, I was just looking at.
Yes, sir.
And it appears as the 4 on the.
That was
okay.
That was what was decided on the approval administratively on 7/29/21 on the PUD plan.
Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure of that.
And to clarify, if you don't mind, sir, is that was 2 parking spots
On each
On
side?
each, yeah, east and
Okay.
west end, I think. Is that, would that, you refer to that east and west on that building, on that site plan?
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? No. Okay, we will now hear from persons who would like to present this case. Please come forward with your microphone and give your name and number. Excuse me, name and address.
Courtney, would you help me with this? Would you go to that PUD? I'm not gonna be, I don't need to waste my time with that thing, because I won't be able to work it, I guarantee it. I'm sorry about that. My name is Jeff Shapercutter. My wife and I'm the managing member of Capital Opportunity Fund LLC. My wife, Jane, is also present. We're the only members of Capital Opportunity Fund LLC. Our address is 320 Nishadsy Bluff, Jefferson City. I love it when people count days. It is true that the fire department has consistently said, we don't want any parking in that area. They weren't happy, frankly, with two. There's another email. There's another email that they didn't read to you that says, we think we've compromised enough. Here's my problem with this whole thing. West Wall Way is a public street in the city of Jefferson. I bought property adjacent to my wife and I bought property adjacent to West Wall Way, knowing that West Wall Way was a public street in the city of Jefferson, knowing, of course, that that fire station was immediately north. The title work that we got when we got the property didn't say anything about West Wall Way being limited in our use. The fire department has been all over the place as far as their reasons for, they have claimed all sorts of things that they need the back of that fire station for. As a matter of fact, their boats are located in the front of the fire station and exit through on High Street. I think they do have a couple of, interesting, I actually filed an open records request for the city, for the fire department, asking them for the identity of all of their boats that they had in their inventory and where they were located in this station. We think that all of their boats have always been located up on that High Street exit. We think that they may have a couple of, what do you call them, jet skis down in the basement that they get out every once in a while for training purposes, apparently. Here's my problem with the fire department in this thing. It's simple as this. They've owned this fire station now for 40-some years. West Wall Way has been a public street that entire time. As a matter of fact, the fire department actually owned, Jeff City actually owned the property that we bought from the Housing Authority several years. In 1976, they were intended to build their fire training facility there and decided not to, and the Housing Authority asked them to give it back to them if they weren't going to use it. That West Wall Way's been there for 50 years, more or less. If you look at that final PUD plan, you'll see that they have the ability to create their own egress out of their building. I jokingly said to Steve Kroll one day, give me $10,000 and I'll build you an exit from the back of your fire station. And apparently they asked the engineering division to cost an exit there, an egress, an emergency egress. And you see, I do need that pointer now, Eric. Yeah. See? If you go back to that one, I'm sorry.
Top button
Yeah.
will use the pointer, so, and then the top one is to advance, the bottom one, or the big one is to advance, the bottom one is to go back.
The fire department has always had the ability, Courtney, you're gonna have to go back to that other. The fire department has had the ability for 50 years to build their own exit from that property. They chose not to in the previous 48 years, and then we come along. And I guess I almost feel like sometimes that I almost need to apologize for putting this project in here. We want 8 parking spaces. Jane and I, after this came up the first time, we went out to North Carolina to visit our grandkids. My 13-year-old granddaughter said, "This is over parking spaces?" We have 4 parking spaces that are showing on that place right now that have been approved by the city. We have room, there's room for 8 parking spaces. That parking area there is 26 feet deep from the sidewalk to West Wallway. Plenty of room for a vehicle actually to back out into the parking area and still pull out onto West Wallway. Frankly, this is a turf war, as simple as that. It's almost impossible to fight City Hall on this one. The fire department has the ability to create their own exit from this property. They've refused now for 50 years. And here's our position, frankly. When the city claims that the use of a public way, such as Wallway, can somehow limit the use, when the city claims that its use of a public way, such as Wallway, can somehow limit the public's use or the use by an adjoining landowner of that same public way, and when the city has the land, the resources, the personnel, and the equipment to provide for its own access and not rely on the public way, then the city has a legal obligation to provide their own access. Now, you might say, do they have the land? Clearly. Do they have the resources, personnel? They've engineered it already. Do they have the money to do it with? They get $30,000 a year for that communications tower and lease payments from the communication tower. Use some of the money they get for that public communications tower to build their own access and to stop depriving us of what we think is our, almost hate to use the word, right to use a public way that adjoins our property. Frankly, the fire department, if you look through all those emails, I love it when they provide 41 pages worth of emails, because the most interesting stuff is the stuff that they don't provide. After our city council meeting, by the way, this body approved this request back in July, I think, or August. 40 days later, the city council, by a 5-5 vote, did not approve. The mayor was in Germany at the time, wasn't there to cast a tie-breaking vote. I have no idea how she would have voted, frankly. Doesn't make much difference. That's why we're here today. I don't want to have to come back. 2 times ought to be enough. We want 8 parking spaces back there. We think we're entitled to them. It's a public street, and frankly, the city's approach to this has been to deprive us of our right to use a public street for simple ingress and egress. And if you look at the ordinance that's in the packet here, it goes to great lengths to tell you what our obligations are with respect to that alleyway and keeping it clear. We have an obligation to, if we see people back there that are parked in the alley, we have an obligation to say, hey, do you mind moving out of the alley? That's an obligation that the city council specifically put on us when they approved this plan a year and a half ago or so. So, I've met up there 5 times with the fire department. Talked, frankly, to Chief Turner, Chief Schofield. Really only learned one thing out of the whole thing, frankly. They're aggravated that somebody is in that property. I don't know if it affects their view or what. They don't like having us there. They don't like it. And everything they have done over the last 853 days, I didn't count it myself. has been designed to limit our use of property that we own. I'm frankly, nothing that happens from this point out is going to surprise me.
So I'm just going to give you a heads up.
My time's up.
Well, we go off a 10-minute deal.
Yeah.
So if you have a few more words to say.
I guess I'd like to reserve some time if I could, in case somebody else says something. I'm basically done. Thank you.
Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Jane Shaper Cutter. Jeff is my husband, and we live at 320 Nishadsey Bluff. And I usually don't speak after my husband because I think he does a really good job. I mean, he's a professional speaker. He knows what he needs to say. But I think just from my personal point of view, I would like to tell you how I think about this. We built this building. Our son and daughter-in-law have the business of 3-Story Coffee, and they struggled a lot to build their business. They had a small building, and it's now 10 years later, and they have a wonderful business. And we're proud of them, and we wanted to bring something to the community of Jefferson that would help them, but also help the community. If any of you have been there, you know it's a good place. It even is better than we had hoped, so we want to provide as much parking as we can. There has been an issue with the fire department. We now have 4 spaces back there, and it has been striped, and there's the concrete abutment coming out just as what is in the plan to get our cars to move in. Everything we have done has been by the plan that we have set up. There has been traffic back there now because those 4 spaces have been used. Not directly in like we would like, but parallel to the building. In the time that we have had traffic back there, which has been the last couple of months, I guess, the fire department has not done anything more on that alleyway to show that it is a fire lane. If I was the fire department, I would paint that whole thing red. I would get out my bucket of paint and I would paint that thing red. They have signs up. On their property, they can put some more. I don't think, as long as we have had cars parked in the back there, I have not seen one time that there was a problem from us exiting that to them exiting at the same exact time. And I'll tell you, if I was parked back there and I heard them coming out, I would not want to get in their way. And I would stop and let them go through. And I think any individual would do that. We would like to have 8 spaces back there. Our staff, and I'm talking like it's my business, it's my daughter and son-in-law's, staff has to park on the street, which takes up other parking spots for people that want to come in and have a cup of coffee. I don't think we're asking for a lot, and I don't think we are hurting the public by this, because I don't think any reasonable person would get in the way of a boat or anything else coming out of there. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I just want to say that I don't think we're asking for a lot. I think we want to do exactly what they do on their side. They pull in that way. We would like to pull in that way. And I'd stay out of their way. And I know the public is crazy, but I don't think anybody is going to pull out in front of them 2 or 3 or 4 or 8 times a year when they're pulling their vehicles out. So thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions for Jane?
I have a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Not specifically for you, I guess you or your husband, but what are the hours of your business?
the coffee shop there is open, and that the coffee shop is on the lower floor, if you're familiar with the area. This back area is the second floor. The lower floor, the coffee shop is open from 7 o'clock until 5 o'clock on Monday through Friday, and they're open from 8 o'clock until 2 o'clock on Saturday, and they're not open on Sunday currently.
And what do you consider to be your peak hours when you would most likely have more people parking?
The early morning, 7 to 10 are the busy hours for that business.
So recently, have all of those spots been used? The reason I ask is I've been coming by every day to look at your parking lot. I've been there in the 7 o'clock hour, the 8 o'clock hour, the 9 o'clock hour. I've been there in the afternoons. And the only vehicle I've ever seen is a white pickup truck parked there. So I'm trying to.
In back, ma'am? Is that what you're
Yes.
talking about, in back?
Yes.
I was over there today, the snow, of course, the employees are asked to park back there, but frankly, they're used to parking on the street. We can't direct them to park there. I think frequently the business has there's a handicap space back there, so there's really 3 spaces for use for non-handicapped people. And I think that certainly I've been over there a lot of times in the morning when my daughter and son-in-law are both working, their vehicles are back there. So I don't know what time it was that you were by there at all. But that parking lot does get used by employees.
I guess I just hit the mornings that there was no one there. Because,
Well, or what time? Ma'am, again, I don't know what time you were there.
I was there at 6:50 on Tuesday morning.
Yeah, there's an employee there at 6:50 in the morning.
And the only thing I saw was the white pickup truck.
Again, that's my son-in-law's.
And what my observation was that in front, in your main parking lot, which by the way, your building is beautiful. I commend you for that. But the parking lot in front, it looks like a lot of people come and go. People pull in, they go in, get their stuff because you don't have a drive-through, so they come in, get their stuff and leave. And there was a lot of people coming and going in that front parking lot, but there were always spaces available.
That's not always the case.
Well, again, I must just hit it right then, I guess. But
So again, it is sometimes the case. I mean, obviously, we want there to be parking in front for people to pull in.
Now,
and sometimes there is and sometimes there isn't.
are you operating your Airbnb now?
Not yet.
Okay. So, but that requires 2 parking spaces.
It does.
To be listed.
It does.
Okay.
These two spaces on this side will be
So
designated for.
The Airbnb is on the west end of the building?
Yes.
So the
It is.
front is where that little Juliet balcony is?
Yes.
On the front, okay.
That's right.
Well, I guess I just been hinting because I was concerned about this because it's already been voted out of here and it went to the city council and it was not approved. And now we're revisiting it again. So I take my duty as a commissioner very seriously. That's why I've been going over and looking at the parking lot.
Good.
Looking at the coming and going. And nothing I saw convinced me that you need more parking spaces.
Well, I'm sorry about that. But let me say this, the other reason that we're back here, because Mayor Turgeon frankly encouraged me to refile the application. The most interesting thing that happened at the city council meeting was a fellow came up and said, why can't you guys work this out? And we actually had some of those meetings that the chief talked about, trying to work these things out. And it finally got to the point where the mayor said, go through the process again. No promises.
Well, I think you have that right.
That's what I think too.
But,
Thank you.
You know,
Thank
it could
you.
happen the same way again.
It may, and if it does, c'est la vie. But at least if the mayor's there and there's an opportunity for a tie vote to be broken, or maybe somebody will change their mind, we're just taking a chance at it's that important to us. If it weren't, we would have bagged it 6 months ago.
And you still own the property across McCarty Street?
Yes.
And you have parking over there?
Yes.
Okay.
Across the, yes, there is parking over there.
On average, how many employees are working at one time?
Between, there are always 3 people behind the bar in the morning from 7 to 10. In addition, I'm sorry. In addition, there's another, they have employees also that do the roasting in that other part of the main floor part of the building, and other people that prepare scones and things of that nature. So there's frequently 5 employees.
Okay, so
There-
maybe 5 employees during peak time?
Yes, and then the afternoon, like we were by there right before they closed today, right before we came here, and there was one employee, who was there getting ready to close down.
Okay. And my other question is kind of looking through the packet and coming back again with your application. Is there kind of what's different about this one compared to the last one? Is it the email communication, the timeline? Is there anything else in there?
I think there's nothing different about the application.
Okay.
The incentive for refiling this, frankly, came from a couple of fire department employees, past and present, who said, there's not that much emergency use out of the back of that building. And when I get that kind of message from somebody, it just makes me wonder what's going on here. So the difference between when we filed that application the first time and when we filed it this time is finding out that maybe the fire department was exaggerating their use of the emergency access.
Did those employees work at Fire Station
Yes,
1? Okay.
both.
Okay. That's all I have.
Mr. Shaper Cutter, I think you were going to use the pointer and show us what your thoughts were on, and I would be interested in that.
I want the area. That one right there? Yeah. Okay. And so it's very top left there. Okay. So this area right here is where the fire department has 6 pull-in spaces from West Wall Way, the same sort of spaces that they had previously said we cannot put in down there. And they've backed off of that a little bit today, but you'll recall at the first meeting, that was a major point. No pull-in parking from an alley. Those 6 or 8 spaces are pulled in from the alley. Right here, there's an area, a clear area, whether they use the current parking spaces or something else, there's a clear opportunity right here for them to take a few scoops of dirt out and build an exit directly to Bolivar. They can still, if they want to, they can still use that parking space there, although if you look up here, you see 3 vehicles parked in there. How many vehicles are parked up there? 1 or 2 maybe. And then spaces down here. There's plenty of room right there for the fire department or the city, whichever one is going to be responsible here, to put in an exit from their parking area, and confine it only to egress. In other words, when they're leaving on an emergency, only use it for egress. Continue to use West Wallway if they want to get in. But if they have an emergency situation, frankly, this is fire management, fire department, if there's such a thing, probably fire department malpractice to have a situation where you're limited in your exit by a public street. Because what if there's an accident right there out on Bolivar Street and they can't get out? Bolivar Street's, again, a public street. I'm just saying, build your own exit. You have the money to do it. The fact that they've, now put this off for 12 or 16 months, I'm sorry, 853 days, build an exit.
When you were explaining the process, I think you indicated that the engineers, they did look into an alternative route, and
They
I
told me
didn't catch what the
the mayor
result
told me
was.
they did. The
Okay.
mayor told me that she asked the engineering department to engineer an exit over the Jeff City's own property, so they didn't have to use West Wall Way. And I never saw that. I wish I had. The mayor indicated to me that the cost was too much. It's probably a 24-foot wide concrete exit, and it doesn't have to be for them. Again, I'm not asking for them to build a thoroughfare through there. I'm just asking them to take care of their own emergency needs on their own property without limiting our use of a public street.
And are you still willing to limit the parking in the rear of the building to Airbnb tenants and staff only?
You know, am I still willing to? If this body thinks that that's an appropriate amendment to put on it, I'm still willing to live with that, although I think last time it was staff, employees, and tenants or something like that is what you had put in the motion the last time. Again, it rankles me a little bit, frankly, to have the city. I think you could go to 15,000 other places in the city and not find a single place where the city is telling people who can park in a individual business owner's parking lot. Those ought to be employer decisions, owners' decisions, and not the city of Jefferson, especially in this particular case when they've proven to me beyond a shadow of any doubt that they can't handle this conflict of interest that they're dealing with. They've got a property interest in the fire station. They're protecting that property interest. They have the ability to take care of their own egress needs, and instead they're telling us, tough bananas. The chief at the last meeting that we had with the Planning and Zoning Commission, Chief Schofield, said, "We've been there a long time." Some of you may remember that quote. We've been there a long time. We haven't been. But now that long time ownership of this property by the fire station, by Jefferson City, is actually affecting our property. And I have an obligation to my wife and I and our company to try to protect the investment that we've made there. By the way, I'll also say this, the fire department also owns all of that. The city of Jefferson also owns all of that property to the right. A little bit more complicated maybe to get an exit out of there, but if they want to, they've got that whole area there to build another exit. No, I haven't seen any energy put into that effort. Maybe no interest either.
Else have any more questions? Okay, thank you. I do have one question for the Mr. Turner, the police department or fire department. And you've probably discussed this before. Explain to me how that works down there. What's the process of pulling a vehicle out? What's on it? I mean, do you have a siren that goes off before you pull out of the?
It's delegated by by the incident type. To confirm that we don't have any watercraft there, that is incorrect. I'll be glad to take you there after this meeting, and I'll give you a tour of the station myself. We have 2 watercraft boats that are in the fire station. If he's referring to the trailer that he sees upstairs, no, that is a large foam unit. That's the only trailer there. During training, periodically, if they're having training the next day, they leave it hooked up to that vehicle. They back it into that bay merely because they know they're going back out tomorrow for the same training with another shift. The other thing that we have down there, which is a major resource, is our central air that fills the bottles that the firefighters wear on their backs for firefighter operations. We don't have a system to fill those on site. So they have to go back to that station, more specifically, the busiest station, the closest station. We've allocated 3 of those stations that we're able to go through strategically throughout the city. It's important that we have that resource available. If we don't, then there's consequences. And if you don't mind, yes, sir.
What vehicle pulls the trailer? What kind of vehicle is that?
Utility trucks, 1-ton trucks, 3/4 tons. You know, the vehicles you see in that
Right.
area there.
Like a regular pickup type truck,
Correct.
not a fire truck.
Correct.
Got it, okay.
Now, large apparatus pull back there when they go to fill the air bottles.
Okay, got it.
And can I? You know, the claims all over the board. I want to just emphasize, it's not about parking. It's about increased traffic. We have not been all over the board about this for any other reason except for the increased traffic. If for 1 second you think that we haven't discussed this and tried to work with the developer and the owner, going from no parking to 4 parking is something, in my opinion. He just said it's for employee parking. We worked with him, and even on the emails, he agreed that he felt that it was reasonable, and never did we ever mention that, you know, hey, I'm going to come back and resubmit a new PUD to rezone or reauthorize us to park 8 cars back there. It's not about parking, ladies and gentlemen. It's about traffic, the increased traffic. And I'll be glad, if you want to learn something about fire trucks and vehicles, come to Station 1, get on the truck, and go out with them and go down Missouri Boulevard. And if you think for 5 seconds people will get out of the way in a wham just because they see a fire truck coming with lights and sirens and horns going off, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. That is not real. It is hard enough. And to the other statement that when you say, where would the fire department tell people that they can't park? We do that all over the city. When you come and you see these site plans that are presented to you every time they're presented on large projects, we tell people you can't park in these areas because the fire code allows us to, because it's emergency access to those buildings. They're called fire lanes. And I'll close with this. When we had our earlier discussions, and it's in the emails, we talked about signage specifically on both sides. We talked specifically about painting those areas. Though it's been cold, we've discussed it. We put our signs up. But the developer and the owner of the property has refused. He said at the meeting when we met at the property with the mayor and the council, he said, I'm not putting signage on my property. So now if we're going to make things as what we talked about earlier, I want to just be able to defend the fire department. There is no personal we don't have a beef. Our guys walk over there and buy coffee. The only reason I don't stop there for my morning coffee is it's not in my travel way. I'll make that very clear. I have nothing, and if anybody thinks that this is personal, I go up to Jeff every time I see him in the public. I always extend my hand. Hi, how are you? This is not personal. It's all about providing public safety.
As well, could you go to the photo that's the parking as it appears now? If I'm looking at that photo, I guess I think that it probably increases the likelihood that someone's going to park in that alley by having that barrier there, and that they would pull up along that barrier like it's a curb, versus if there's parking that's going straight in, someone's not going to pull and park there and block the parking that's going into the building. Is that something that's been, and maybe I'm coming out of left field there.
That was what was requested, I think, between the engineering and between the fire department, the discussion during the earlier designs when we were at 2 or 4 parking spots. That's what was decided that would be appropriate for this area. A curb there would help separate the separation between the alleyway and their parking. I believe even in one email it talks about ballards or barriers of some types, and I think this was what was decided on. Yeah, and it does still need to be painted red, and that's one of the issues that we have. We're just trying to come to an agreement where we're on the same page. And as far as the communications hire, that money goes to general fund. Fire department, police department, none of us see that. That is in general fund. and it's allocated into the general fund. It's not allocated for anything, and if you want to say that you should use that money for that purpose, then it's taking away from other projects that we've never planned on having to do, like this one here, putting in our own drive. If our own drive was going to be an issue that we need to discuss, we should have discussed that, again, 853 days ago.
Is your trash, do I remember correctly, your trash is picked up from down that alley as well?
That is correct. At the very end,
Trash 1 time a week, 2 times a week, as far as trash pickup?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I believe it's 1 time a week.
1 time a week, okay. Because some are more than others. Does anybody else have any questions? And then we'll let you speak, and if nobody, do you anybody else? You do? Okay.
Can you go back to the site plan, the aerial of it? Yes.
So kind of in the back there, where the tower and the trash cans are, is there any parking spaces for, I can see the 2 vehicles there, perpendicular to the building, kind of one, there where the tree is kind of slanted in there. Is there parking spaces along that, or are you trying to keep that open?
Mr. Robinette, what we do with that is twofold. Is we position those vehicles, employees' vehicles, to park in those areas, designated areas, and then at the end of the shifts, the vehicles coming in, they get there early, they have areas to park. Now, I'll clarify that parking at the top, there where you see at the front of the building, that is command staff parking. The assistant chief on duty is there, and we are in there between the 6 chiefs at a period during a day. We're in there, in and out of there constantly. So, and that's the other place where they position the station vehicle that's utilized for pulling those boats, trailers, and stuff.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it real short, 'cause I'm just gonna
Mr. Chair, I'll just remind, there is still more
okay.
portions of the public hearing, those in opposition,
That's
et
right.
cetera.
We discussed before. We're actually going to have you come up at the very end, okay? Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone present who would like to speak in opposition of this request? Is there anyone present who would like to just speak on this request? And I feel at that time, if you want to come back up and try to keep it as short as possible.
I just wanted to react to Chief Turner saying that I had refused to put up signs back there. Not true. What happened was, when the place was in process, that back parking lot hadn't even been completed yet, the city came in, I think at the direction of somebody from the city, and put up fire lane zones in that area of the parking lot that was gravel when the place was under construction. I called up somebody at the city and said, that's going to get in the way. Don't put this. They'd also put a sign up down at the street. They took both those. They wind up taking that sign, actually having city staff come by and take that sign down, because they realized it was on our property and not in the way. So when Chief Turner says that I refused to put up signs, that's just not true. And I think, frankly, that he may be misinformed as to what happened with that one sign that was put on property that was in the way of construction. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. We will now close testimony. Courtney, staff report, please. Or Eric, I guess.
Yeah, I'll take it. The staff report and the staff recommendation is contained in your packet. I'll just refer to the recommendation that's contained there. Again, I reiterate, the basis of the staff recommendation is the fire department concerns, which have been expressed this evening. With that, the form of motion is up on the screen. And Be happy to answer any other questions the commission may have.
Okay. Do any commissioners have any questions of staff? One last time.
Can I ask if the city did look into an alternative route that Mr. Shaper-Cutter referenced?
I can confirm that it was looked at, reviewed. I don't have anything as far as drawings or anything on it. I don't know how much engineering put in forth, to do that. I see everything, and I've not seen that. I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
I guess I'll go ahead and make a motion. I think I made one last time too. I respect the concerns that the fire department has. I guess I just feel as though there are some ways that we can resolve this, in making sure that the concerns of the fire department are addressed without limiting Mr. Shaper-Cutter's use of his property. So I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the city council of the proposed PUD plan amendment.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
any discussion?
Oh, sorry. Any discussion?
Quick question. So is there a plan to do alternate, like a plan, I guess a decision to find an alternative? Is there a plan to even do something like that in the future?
Well, I can tell you that with our budget the way it is, I can't see where we would be able to pull funding away from other important projects that we have with 7 other locations, specifically to address this one that, we didn't put on our radar 2 or 3 years ago. Had we had this discussion then, my answer may be different, but I can't go back in time and give you an answer, something that we have today. It's not in our budget.
Is there any further discussion? No. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
So,
If we could request a roll call vote.
yeah, we'll request a roll call. Start down there. Yep.
That is correct. All members present are voters.
So she'll make the call.
Yeah. Quigg,
Nay.
Butler,
Nay.
Fretwell,
Aye.
Young. Vote,
Aye.
Robinette,
No.
and Michael.
So 4-3, is that right? 4-3. Oh, excuse me, 4 nay. So motion does not carry. It is denied.
And so this matter will be referred to the city council with the Planning and Zoning Commission's negative recommendation. That will appear as introduction to the council on February 6th, and then a public hearing and vote scheduled for February 20th. Both of those meetings will be held at 6 p.m. in these chambers.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to other new business. I don't know if we have any.
Give me a moment while I find the slide.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I have to go. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I missed that out.
Sure. I don't think we don't have any other voting matters.
Yes, yes. So the pending case we have at the city council is for the Emily Lane subdivision, that small 3-lot subdivision at the end of Emily Lane. It is scheduled for a vote their next meeting on Tuesday. Rescheduled because of the holiday. It occurs on a Tuesday rather than a Monday. And then also the other business item that we have is introduction of our new member. I'd like to give them an opportunity to tell us a little about themselves.
We ran you through the ringer on the first one. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Sarah Michael. I'm an attorney here in Jefferson City. I've lived in Jeff for approximately 27 years. I'm not a native. I have 2 children. I have hearing aids, so I'm not sure if the phone rang out loud or if it just rang in my head. So I apologize if it rang out loud. I have 2 children. My son is a sophomore at the University of Missouri, Columbia, and my daughter's a senior at Helias. And I look forward to the opportunity to serve and do my part to contribute to the community. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Welcome.
Thanks.
Okay.
We have one other new member. I believe he had a previous engagement for this meeting. Was also absent at the last one, and so but hopefully we'll have an opportunity for introduction at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I believe that's all we have. All right. I declare this meeting adjourned.
Move to adjourn?
I move to adjourn. It says declared.
No.
I just read off the sheet, man.
Different meetings do different things.